We are taught that nature operates on a simple, unforgiving principle. The biggest, fastest, and most lethal creatures dictate the terms of survival. Think of the classic apex threats: massive bears that dominate the food chain, venomous snakes that kill with a single strike, or elephants that can casually crush the landscape simply by walking through it. If you happen to be small, weak, or caught off guard, a direct physical confrontation with any of these creatures is a guaranteed death sentence. So, how exactly do you navigate an environment heavily skewed toward giants? For centuries, humans have passed down animal fables. We tend to treat them as harmless bedtime stories for children. But if you look closely at the actual mechanics of these tales, you find a highly structured, encoded playbook for survival. They teach the exact principles of asymmetric warfare, a strategic framework where the physically weak outmaneuver the strong by neutralizing the enemy's size advantage through intellect and positioning. To see how this works in practice, we have to look past the teeth and claws and analyze the specific tactics deployed in 3 distinct jungle case studies. The absolute baseline of any strategy starts with the network around you. Take the scenario of 2 friends walking deep into a dense forest, only to be suddenly cut off by an aggressive, massive bear. In a true crisis, their supposed unity instantly shatters. One friend immediately scales the nearest tree to save himself, leaving his partner stranded on the ground to face a lethal threat alone. With no physical means to fight or run, the grounded friend uses a biological exploit. He drops to the dirt, holds his breath, and lies perfectly still, taking advantage of the bear's natural instinct to avoid eating carrion. The bear investigates, assumes he's dead, and walks away. When the man in the tree climbs down and asks what the bear whispered in his ear, the grounded friend replies with the core lesson. The bear told him to instantly drop any friend who flees at the first sign of danger. This is the prerequisite for any defensive tactic. You cannot execute complex maneuvers against massive threats if the allies you rely on abandon their posts the moment friction occurs. Survival requires rigorously vetting your network before the crisis hits. Once you have a reliable network, you can escalate the tactics. Consider a crow family living in a large banyan tree, whose eggs are repeatedly eaten by a lethal black snake living in the hollow trunk below. For small birds, a direct physical assault on a venomous predator equals certain death. Realizing their weakness, they consult a local jackal. He points out that engaging a physically superior enemy head-on is foolish, and advises an indirect, intellectual approach. He introduces the mechanics of proxy warfare. If you lack the physical power to remove an obstacle, you route the problem to a third party that has the necessary force, weaponizing their greed or their duty to your advantage. The crow executes the plan. He steals a princess's diamond necklace in full view of the royal guard, dropping the treasure directly into the snake's den. The soldiers follow the thief, where they violently dismantle the red barrier. Attempting to retrieve the necklace, the guards agitate the snake. When it strikes out, they immediately kill it with their swords and spears, completely neutralizing the crow's threat without a single bird having to fight. Facing an immovable object doesn't require you to push back. You simply alter the environment so that a much larger, opposing force does the heavy lifting for you. But what happens when the enemy is so large that there is no bigger predator to redirect? A rogue, arrogant elephant tearing through a forest carelessly crushes a tiny bird's nest underfoot, destroying her eggs out of sheer dominance. The bird weighs a few ounces. The elephant weighs thousands of pounds. There are no royal guards or bigger beasts to call in. To survive this, she has to build a highly specialized syndicate. She gathers a task force based entirely on synergistic microskills. She recruits a bee, a woodpecker, and a frog. Individually, none of them can harm an elephant. First, the bee attacks the auditory senses. It flies directly next to the elephant's ear, humming a hypnotic song that distracts the massive beast and forces it to close its eyes in a trance. The moment the elephant lowers its defenses, the woodpecker launches a precision strike. Using its needle-like beak, it pierces the elephant's eyes, instantly blinding the titan and inducing panic. Bleeding and roaring, the elephant quickly develops an intense thirst. This is where the frog executes the final step. Gathering a group of frogs near the edge of a deep, rocky ravine, they begin croaking loudly. Relying entirely on his hearing, the blinded elephant follows the sound of water right off the cliff, falling to his death. When individual actions are useless, combining hyper-specialized micro-skills, auditory distraction, precision striking, and audio deception can systematically dismantle the largest land mammals on Earth. Look at the final battlefield. The imposing bear was tricked by a man holding his breath. The venomous snake was sliced apart by an unaware third party, and the invincible elephant lies broken at the bottom of a ravine, defeated by a bug, a bird, and an amphibian. The environments have changed, but the tactical logic remains identical. Today's elephants and bears are heavily funded corporate monopolies, sudden systemic life crises, or deeply entrenched competitors. These forces rely heavily on the illusion that overwhelming size guarantees victory. But physical dominance has a massive blind spot when it encounters the agile, invisible machinery of an interconnected thinking network. The law of the jungle is widely misunderstood. It rarely rewards the biggest target or the hardest hitter. Instead, it systematically favors those who can adapt their strategy to exploit the rigid habits of their enemies. When you lack sheer force, your leverage comes from how efficiently you can analyze a threat and organize your resources. Intellect paired with unbreakable unity is the oldest survival code in human history, making the mind the true apex predator.